Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Khalid. But today is the 16th of April 2025. These are the stories that we'll try to decipher during the course of our show. We'll begin with the Overseas Pakistanis Convention that was recently held in Islamabad and all the incentives that have been announced by our Prime Minister for the Overseas Pakistanis. And there are quite a couple of incentives that have been announced. How important was this convention? Not only gathering the Overseas Pakistanis but also to show the common resolve of all the stakeholders in Pakistan as far as taking our country forward is concerned. This is going to be our first segment. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the closure of madrasas in Uttarakhand. Now, this is a series of different measures that have been taken by the Narendra Modi government. Different points of views. A lot of Muslim leaders and Muslims say that this is a step in the same direction that they have been taking since the last couple of years as far as the persecution of the minorities, especially Muslims, are concerned. The BJP government has its own stance as far as the closure of these madrasas is concerned, but around 173 madrasas plus have been closed in Uttarakhand as we speak, and this is just one of the many measures that have been taken by the BJP government. Then we'll be talking about the pro-Palestine boycott that needs to be peaceful. That has been said by the chief of the Council of Islamic Ideology, and this also comes in the wake of the different violent incidents that have occurred all over Pakistan. In Sheikhupura, at least one employee has been killed by the mob, and this does not bode well with either Islam or our values. Finally, we are going to talk about World Health Organization countries who have struck a landmark agreement to tackle future pandemics, and all this in the absence of the United States. This is a very important measure and has been hailed by all the communities worldwide. This is the lineup for today. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns the Overseas Pakistanis Convention and the incentives that have been announced by our Prime Minister during the course of this convention. Our Chief of the Army Staff also addressed this convention, so did other leaders of the Overseas Pakistanis community. We have two guests with us to discuss that in detail. Let me introduce them to you one by one. On my very right is Naeem Siddiqui Saab. He's a political economist and a regular in our shows. Naeem Saab, welcome to our show. Our second guest is our correspondent from PTV World, and he has been following such conventions, and he was there at the spot, so we thought why not ask from the horse's mouth. Saeed Hassan Gillani, correspondent PTV World, joins us online as well. Thank you very much, Hassan. The pleasure is all ours, Hassan, and it's always a pleasure to have you on board for our shows. We'll begin with Naeem Saab. Naeem Saab, around 1,200 Pakistani expatriates from across the world come to Islamabad in this Overseas Pakistanis Convention. Talking about the contribution of more than 10 million overseas Pakistanis, which is a huge amount. Our Prime Minister calls the overseas Pakistanis the pride of our nation. What was the primary objective of this first Overseas Pakistanis Convention, and how, in your point of view, did it aim to strengthen ties between the Pakistani diaspora and also the government?
Thank you very much, Omar. It was a landmark gathering, and it was a great convention of the overseas Pakistanis here in Convention Center. And as you said, there were more than 1,200 people all over the world. They gathered under one roof, and the first time the government exposed and introduced their program for the future for the development of Pakistan. And the primary focus, as you said, is to recognize the immense contribution of overseas Pakistan to our economy and national image. This was the prime, and then the representation of 10 million overseas Pakistan in Pakistan and the diaspora, the $4 billion remittance for this month basically was a great initiatives taken by the government to facilitate these overseas for 3 days, and it serves a platform to engage them in policy making, addressing their concerns, and encourage their participation in Pakistan development through investment, remittance, knowledge transfer, and advocacy. So this is the first time that I have seen the government is taking serious concerns and acknowledging the efforts and the contribution of the overseas to the economy of the Pakistan, and in uplifting the society of this country. As you know that about 36 to 38 billion remittance we are expecting this year, and this money is all coming from through the remittance of our diaspora, and now it is increasing day by day because all the remittance is now being channelized And during last 3-4 years, much of our skilled labor, professionals, IT experts, engineers and doctors have gone overseas, and as you see there are a lot of opening we are seeing in the Middle East, particularly in the Gulf countries, like lot of development is being done in Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and then there is a huge demand, and this is the time when where our overseas ministry and Ministry of Trade and our TDAPs and Board of Investments, they really need to jump in and find out the opportunities for the overseas Pakistan to go there and work. And as you see that in this convention, most of the overseas were also invited to explain about their point of view and what they are looking from this government. It was a very interactive session in a way that they spoke after a long time. They showed their desires. About the 13-14 points they wanted from the government of Pakistan, and as the Prime Minister also pledged a lot of promises. And
yes, let's talk about the promises that the Prime Minister has pledged. The Prime Minister talks about special courts, tax remission, job quotas, but let's begin with the green channel at the airports. Doesn't it aim to simplify procedures for overseas Pakistanis? And it has a historical context also in the government of Nawaz Sharif Sahab in the previous years as well. But before that, tell us a little bit about the ambience at that convention, because you were there. Tell me, what were the feelings by the overseas Pakistanis? What was their point of view as far as getting them together for this convention is concerned?
Yes, indeed. I was there for 3 days, and the first day was dedicated to internal mingling and interaction between the Pakistani officials and OPF officials and overseas Pakistanis. It almost sounded like a mini United Nations of the overseas Pakistanis, because 70 countries from across the globe had been represented at this event. The special feature has been that it was completely an apolitical event, completely an a-religious event, which has also dispelled the impression, if any certain party claims that they have a larger following among the overseas Pakistanis. That is not the case, because those thousands of overseas Pakistanis had gathered under one umbrella with a single point agenda, which was to take Pakistan forward, to advance Pakistan's development. Whatever political ideology they may be subscribing to, but the one point agenda here was to stand right behind Pakistan and support the efforts made by the government of Pakistan to sort of, make Pakistan a better country, a prosperous country, and a more stronger country. I have spoken to several influential overseas Pakistanis there, particularly from the US. There was an organization named Houston, Karachi, Sister City, and several other organizations. At the end of the day, they have promised to go ahead with implementation of all those plans that have been discussed during this conference. They have agreed to hold special trade fairs, economic fairs in their respective countries, where they are going to invite Pakistani businessmen, Pakistani representative of Chamber of Commerce there, and sort of interact and act as a bridge between the host countries as well as their home countries. So again, a very important initiative taken by the government of Pakistan. I have covered several events featuring overseas Pakistanis. This is probably the first of its kind, at least in the recent years, that I have seen, where there was enthusiastic participation, very eagerly overseas Pakistanis were having this strong resolve to make efforts. By the way, SIFC was also one of the main discussion, the thrust of discussion. SIFC's special representative gave a detailed briefing to all these overseas Pakistanis of how they can also invest in Pakistan. I myself heard the SIFC officials saying that a single email would work. All they do is...
So ease of doing business was also the point.
They said, you send us a single email that you want to invest this much in Pakistan to this organization, and we'll be replying you sooner than later. Another very important feature was that, the objective was basically to make these overseas Pakistanis act as ambassadors and bring foreign investment in Pakistan. When I interacted with them, they said that they themselves want to make investment in Pakistan, provided that no matter how small the quantum of the investment might be, should be given as much facilitation as support as they are giving to any big investors. Even if the investor is spending, say, as low as a few $1,000s. To start off, they need to encourage the small investors, and then the medium-term investors and the bigger-term investors.
All right, that's very interesting. But I also asked you about the Prime Minister's pledges that were made in different domains for the overseas Pakistanis. How did those board with the community?
Absolutely. In the beginning of the conference, the Prime Minister has announced that at the end of the day, they're going to be announcing a special investment package, which, as you mentioned, includes establishment of the special court under which the overseas Pakistanis would would not be required to come in person and appear before the court. They can send a video message or an audio message. That is going to be a big sort of a relief for all those
e-filing, video link evidence that can also be provided by them.
Quota in education too. The biggest problem that came up during this was the overseas Pakistanis believe that they have been having so many legal hassles and legal complications back home because they have brought property, and while they are not here, the property gets sort of occupied by some elements. So the Pakistani officials have assured them that as per the new incentive package announced, there are going to be no such complexities anymore. They will be facilitated, they will be supported, they will be helped, they will be assisted by all means.
Well, that is wonderful. Naeem Saab, revival of green channel at airports, then there is the educational quotas that have been introduced for the children of overseas Pakistanis, and 5%, 15% medical university quotas also. Then we have the Federal Board of Revenue that will treat overseas Pakistanis as filers. I'm just combining some of the points that the Prime Minister announced for the overseas Pakistanis. How important are these?
These are very important. It was a long demand of the overseas Pakistanis that it should be given due importance in the education sector and the green channel, in the investment in the different industries. And our overseas Pakistan children, they are studying abroad. And I tell you one thing, that the Pakistan education, one of the best education standard in the world particularly, and especially as you see the 5% quota in the universities, 15% quota in the medical college, and then FBR treatment overseas. And now
and also the courses in the NAV, TTC, the more than 5,000 courses that have been announced.
So now, due to the global world being as a global village, you can have a distance education. And many universities in Pakistan now, they have started their program in which they first 3 or 4 semesters they can do from the distance education, and in the final semester they can come in Pakistan and they can have 3-4 semesters over here, and they can graduate from the universities of Pakistan. And they are equally entitled to go any country in the world for the further education. And then this green channel, these our Pakistanis, they are as the Prime Minister and the Army Chief both said, they are the asset of this country.
True.
They are the asset of our economy. Indeed. They are the backbone of our economy. Indeed. And they are staying away and they are contributing for this country. They are doing a lot of sacrifice for the family, for the country, for themselves. And
so they should be given the respect that is due to them.
Respect. And this is the first time they have been given, especially as said that about the property litigation. Yeah. So they are properly provided.
I think that is very important.
They are properly provided for the property protection measures. That government will now look after and care about their property, so that there should not be any bad scene that as you have seen previously. And now they are educating them to invest in the right direction. And as you said that. Our 80% Pakistanis, when they are overseas, they mostly send the payment to Pakistan only to invest in the property and for the welfare of the household.
Exactly.
But now this time the government has asked them to invest in the IT sector, in the startups, especially through government supported tech parks, agriculture, especially high value crops and the food, and tourism and hospitality. And they have introduced many businesses to them that you come and you select what. And I think that in future, if we can have a joint business holding, and they can have their percentage through a public limited companies or through a private limited companies, where there can be a joint shareholding. As you see,
the online deed registration that he said is there in Punjab that he wants to replicate for the overseas Pakistanis.
And the Punjab government has initiated some measure for the overseas Pakistanis. So there was a lot to introduce about the availability of the income resources in Pakistan, because ultimately these overseas Pakistani, more than 70% do come back after completion of
income resources. Let's talk about that. How important is the timing of this convention, considering the record remittances that Pakistan has received of $4.1 billion in March 2025, and of course the number is staggering also for the whole year. Your take?
Very critical and very crucial. And I would say that at this particular occasion, they have also been assured by the government of Pakistan that from now on, they're going to be accorded a special status, a special protocol. I was there, and the Speaker of National Assembly, Mr. Ayaz Sadiq, said that these Pakistanis who are the ambassadors of Pakistan need to be be accorded the status of at least a minister. When they're in the host country and they have any problem, they go to the Pakistani embassy. They should be given the kind of protocol and importance just like any top official from Pakistan is accorded. So this shows the kind of importance and the kind of value that we are now attaching to these overseas Pakistanis. And as a result of that, I have spoken to several overseas Pakistanis. They said that they are now going to be acting as the true ambassadors and play a more proactive sort of role in the image building of Pakistan. You know, let's face it, Pakistan has been having image problems.
True.
And they said that in order to make sure that the international community looks towards Pakistan more favorably, they would be working for Pakistan's image building. They would be lobbying for Pakistan. They will be trying to lure foreign investors into Pakistan, showing the positive image of Pakistan to the world, and sort of act as the catalyst in terms of Pakistan's image building.
That is very important. Now, you know, our Prime Minister also announced that starting from this year, I think, on 14th of August, outstanding overseas Pakistanis will also be awarded civil awards that will be based on remittance contributions as stated by the State Bank. How does this also bode for the relationship that our diplomatic missions hold and the OPF? And how do you feel that they could also contribute as far as nominating people that need to be given the needful awards every year?
Yeah, definitely yes. OPF has had made a big role in promoting the overseas Pakistanis, and now their further responsibility to find out those Pakistanis who are contributing better in the business overseas and at the same time with the business in Pakistan. And I tell you one thing, that though we have a lot of officials we send overseas for the business, but I tell you one thing, that the local and the overseas Pakistanis, they are the best ambassadors in doing business in all over the world. As you see now, we are also in the convention, it was discussed that now apart from the America and Europe, we should find other markets in the world as well, where we have a lot of Pakistanis in Latin America, we have Pakistanis in South Africa, then we have a lot of Pakistanis in GCC countries, in Central Asia. Now this is the area, because the world is changing as far as the trade is concerned. Now they are not much focusing on the global trade, but they are now focusing on the regional trade. And in regional trade, it is very important that as 10 million ambassadors we have in the world, and if those 10 million ambassadors meet another 100 million people, automatically we are being known.
That bodes very well for Pakistan's
yes,
image.
and that it gives the image, because for example, I myself have lived in Japan for 15 years, and when we went to Japan, they didn't know that there is a country like Pakistan. So now we have many thousand Pakistanis working in Far East areas as well, and we are having a good image. And today we were having a meeting with the Japanese people, and they said that Pakistani people are the best workers in the world.
That is true.
Because the world is changing, and those nations, like as you see, the America, they have imposed the tariffs due to that they have lost their SME sector. So they were looking forward for the Asian areas for the products, and now they are suffering, and they are saying that we want to have our industry back. So Pakistani experts, engineers, and the skilled labor, they are very good at their work, and wherever they go, they work with a great effort, time, and hard working, and
if they can contribute also to promoting Pakistan's image abroad, that would be even much better.
Yeah, so I'm sure that another 10 years down the road, we will develop our local industry as well, because our tech industry guys will come back to this country, and they will definitely contribute towards the economy. And particularly at this point of time, with the 40 billion remittance expecting, we need another $40 billion export, and this, our diaspora can contribute, help to the Pakistani government, and Pakistan government, if they can extend their license so politely and openly with the Pakistani as they did in this convention, I definitely feel that they definitely gain the confidence from the government of Pakistan, and then when they will go back to their country, they will work more hard.
Exactly, because they know that there are different opportunities that are being provided to them from now onwards, and that gives them a red carpet treatment in Pakistan.
As you said, the government had a slogan there, you are Pakistanis, pride and power.
All right. Hassan, terrorism was also something that was mentioned. Our Prime Minister talked about the sacrifices of the 80,000 Pakistanis in the fight against terrorism. How did that relate to the broader narrative of national resilience during his convention address? Also, our Chief of the Army Staff addressed this convention, and he described Balochistan as a crown jewel of Pakistan. How did he connect this to the broader fight against terrorism in his speech?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Both the civilian and the military leadership has given a very sort of loud and clear message that a handful of terrorists, be it in Balochistan, be it in KP or anywhere in the country, cannot harm Pakistan, cannot jeopardize Pakistan's interest, cannot undermine Pakistan's credibility. For me personally, the takeaway from the Chief of Army Staff's address to this convention was that he said, and I quote, that even the next 10 generations of terrorists cannot harm Pakistan. Now, this really is a statement that is loud and clear and a very clear message for all those detractors, all those unscrupulous elements, or those inimical forces who want to harm Pakistan's interest. As you said, he said that Balochistan is the jewel of, the crown of Pakistan. Also, he mentioned that as long as the Pakistani nation is standing rock solid behind the armed forces, no power on earth can harm Pakistan. Of course, as you know, Umar, this is a time when there has been a spike in the incidents of terrorism, and of course that has in some way or the other damaged the morale of the Pakistani nation. But this statement from the army chief really has injected a fresh breath of confidence and hope and optimism in the Pakistani
Of course, they also
nation.
talked about the social media propaganda and how their concerns about national unity needed to be addressed to the overseas Pakistani community so that they understood Pakistan's perspective better.
Absolutely, he made it clear that all those social media sort of elements are sitting outside Pakistan and trying to spark or trigger some sort of rebellion in the security institutions can never be the friends of Pakistan. They are the enemies of Pakistan, but the Pakistani nation is of course strong enough and powerful enough to deal with these elements who are casting a devil eye on Pakistan's integrity and Pakistan's interests. So the message from the army chief was loud and clear, and he of course also said that the support of Pakistani nation is critical, and Pakistani nation, as you see, as you know, is standing rock solid behind the armed forces of Pakistan.
That is so true. Thank you so very much to both of my guests, Naeem Siddiqui Saab and Saeed Hassan Gillani, to have joined us, to have discussed different points of this convention that I also did not know, because Hassan, you were there and you gave an inside perspective on what was happening, and I think it's a very, very important step in the right direction at the right time. And with our remittances that are increasing to a record level, I think this will be a step in the right direction. Absolutely. And will invite more overseas Pakistanis to invest in Pakistan and to build Pakistan's narrative abroad in all the countries that they are present in. Let's come to our second story, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns the closure of madrasas in Uttarakhand. Now, this is something that has recently happened, but doesn't surprise anybody, because particularly the fact is that such steps are being taken by the BJP government since it came into power, and this is its third stint in power. There is a closure of around 173 plus madrasas in Uttarakhand alone. The Modi government, as per different analysts, has started this process of closing these madrasas by declaring them illegal. Thousands of children that are studying in these madrasas are now deprived of their teachings. Police and intelligence operations are also happening in Udham Singh Nagar, Dehradun and Nainital that have also created panic amongst the Muslims. The Modi government started this process and its narrative as far as all of this is concerned is that it is being used for certain nefarious purposes, which many of the Muslim leaders have denied. The closure of madrasas in India, as far as many analysts go, also is aimed at prolonging the Modi government's Hindutva agenda. Mufti Shamul Qasmi, who is one of the Muslim leaders, said what is illegal will be called illegal, but politicizing the registration of madrasas is regrettable. And in fact, this is what is happening. These madrasas are being politicized. Civil rights organizations, Congress members, Muslim leaders have all demanded a transparent probe into the closure of madrasas as illegal. But whether it be the Waqf board, whether it be other decisions that have been recently taken, the fact is that such decisions will continue to be implemented despite all the protests that different parts of the community are taking. We've been joined by two guests to discuss more on this. In the studios, we've been joined by Said Usama Chitrali Sahab, he's an international affairs expert, expert. Thank you very much, Chitrali Sahab, to have joined us. And online, we'll be joined by Tayyaba Khurshid, Senior Research Officer with the Center for International Strategic Studies in Azad, Jammu and Kashmir. We'll be joined by Tayyaba in a short while. But Chitrali Sahab, these 173 madrasas that have been closed across the Uttarakhand state and sealed by the government, citing lack of registration with the Madrasa Board or the Education Department as the primary reason. The Chief Minister of Uttarakhand, Mr. Dhami, states that this move is a historic step and is aimed at curbing institutions that allegedly promote radicalism under the guise of education. What is your take on this Indian government stance on the closure of madrasas, and why is it being done actually?
As we refer to our last discussion about the Waqf bill, the amendment, and we have seen that there was a strong response from the Muslim communities for rejecting this bill, and they haven't accepted till date. So I think that this is a start of a pressure. Pressurizing the Muslim to accept that Waqf amendment bill, and that began with, and you said that this like a word still feel like a really radicalized, and some way I say that I feel like the India is now taking its inspiration from the Israel.
All right, they are emulating what you said, what you feel is happening in Israel, because this is what the Chief Minister says, that this step is aimed at curbing institutions that allegedly promote radicalism under the guise of education.
No, eventually if such a thing is happening, so how it comes that they haven't notified with anything? Like if I say that the closure, still I talked to even this Maulana Harun Rokdi, he is the one of the member of the Muslim Board of Uttarakhand. I talked to him that what's happened. He said that just they came and they locked the doors, and even they haven't notified us about the things. Even we have some pending registrations. The madrasas, those being closed, they have their registration files are with the board, but government is not actually cooperating from many of the years. So it's, I think, after the BJP era, it's been happening that there is something. I think it's not about the madrasa or anything. It's about the Muslim, treating the Muslim as a minority and disguising them with every mean just to, I think, running upon their the past RSS, and that mindset is coming up and showing up in their governance right now.
All right, Tayyaba, thank you very much to have joined us as well. Tayyaba, by linking religious education with terrorism, as the Chief Minister of Uttarakhand has said, the BJP government continues to pursue its policy of communal politics. Nothing new there, but it is more and more apparent on what their actual aim is. These closure of madrasas in India, it also seems to promote and prolong the Narendra Modi's Hindutva agenda. What's your take on that?
Thank you so much for inviting me on the show. You have absolutely rightly highlighted, and the Muslim community there has also highlighted all these points, because when we see Hindu or Hindutva-driven agenda of the Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP and the RSS, they have long, promoted Hindu nationalism. And this has resulted in targeting Muslim institutions and religious spaces. And the current policy of training madrasas is said, the government is again feeding this narrative, that paints Muslims as a security risk, which aligns with BJP broader rhetoric of Muslims being anti-national. And all these actions are basically, against madrasas. They feel like the bigger push to diminish Muslim cultural and religious presence in India. This basically, highlights the growing efforts of the Bharatiya Janata Party in marginalizing the Muslim community, and it is also part of their wider pattern of targeting Muslim identity, their culture, whether it is mosques, their businesses, or even their religious practices. And if you see all these actions, they reflect this broader strategy to push Muslims to the edges of society under the pretext of legality and security. If you see, there was a recent report on communal violence. So in just last year, 2024, the communal violence in India grew almost 84%, according to a report. It was highlighted in that report that if you look up at the targeting of the, particular segments of the society, the Muslims are the main targets of those, communal riots and Muslims are being targeted through those, whether it is mob lynching or other, acts of violence. So Muslims are mostly targeted in India, and this refers to the Bharatiya Janata Party broader strategy and their election manifestos, where they target Muslims and they target their historical and cultural identity as well.
All right. Tayyaba, stay online with us. Chitrali Saab, Muslim leaders like Khurshid Ahmed Siddiq have alleged that the closures of these madrasas are politically motivated to target Muslims and link them to the broader policies like the Uniform Civil Code, which is known as the UCC. How do Muslim organizations, in your point of view, in Uttarakhand, such as the Jamiat Ulema-e-Hind, interpret this closure of over 170 madrasas as a targeted attack on their community? And what specific actions have they taken, like, for example, approaching the Supreme Court for their perceived injustice?
Eventually, right now, what we look for, the governance pattern, as you have seen that these madrasas and such a community schools or the social education setups are mostly facilitating the underprivileged children. Those are unable to access any kind of the schoolings or the other setups. Right now, even the closure, even Maulana Harun Rokhri, what he stated even in his statement, that it was also a shelter to many of those Hindus, those were discriminated by under the racism. So I think these policies and proceeding of the court and justice, I think there will be something going to happen somewhere. But right now, what pressure being made by the government, and also they have even if you have read about the statement of the CM, he says we are more looking for more like 3,000 madrasas closure around the Uttarakhand right now. So I think it's a direct heading, and I think it's just a pressure group right now to accept this Waqf amendment bill. And I think this closure thing, in some few days, we are going to see happening around all over India.
All right, but will the judicial system also react to the different leaders of the Muslim communities?
Without any biasness, I say somewhere in India we see that the courts and the justice system somewhere prevails till date.
All right.
So
all right.
I think
so let's see what maybe the judicial system would react to it in another way than the government. Tayyaba, coming to you, parents, especially who belong to the low-income families, voice concern about their children's future who have been part of this madrasa system. In what ways do you feel these parents and students affected by the closures express their fears about the educational disruption, and how do you view their lack of alternative schooling options as a deliberate attempt to marginalize their community as well?
Yes, that's again a very important angle, because many of the Muslim parents, particularly from the low income backgrounds, they send their children to madrasas. Because for them, madrasas provides them spaces where affordable access to basic education is being provided. But we know that when these institutions are abruptly shut down, families are left in a state of uncertainty, and it is because that these academic activities are interrupted as well. So when it comes to the parents in these areas where madrasas have been shut down, these parents are really worried about broader consequences of educational vacuum, because their children will be out of the madrasas, but there is no alternate schooling option available to them. And that is basically a very legitimate fear, because for Muslims in India, opportunities are already limited. And, when it comes to their religious education, this is their fundamental right to get education. And the parents are asking that if these madrasas are being closed for not meeting norms, then where is the plan to ensure, where the children will learn? And the broader, BJP policies, they're also creating frustration among the Muslim communities regarding the policies, because there is no space available for the parents to send their children to, and there is so much of hatred in the radical Hindu mindset that they are they are punishing Muslims for nothing. They've done nothing, but they have been punished through various means. They are not given the right to perform their religious obligations. We have heard about the cases of mob lynching and cow vigilantism is again on the rise in India. So there's so much concern going on, not just regarding the education, but regarding the overall safety and security of their children in these areas.
All right. Chitrali sir, how does the Muslim community perceive this Uttarakhand's government justification of sealing madrasas for quote-unquote security reasons and unlawful activities as a pretext to align with their Hindutva agenda of erasing the Muslim cultural and religious identity?
Eventually, when we see the Maulana Shamun Qasmi, who is directly leading the Muslim board of Uttarakhand, he said illegal is illegal. But to address the illegal activity, there is some SOP and a defined procedure of the government. And even we look up to the act which has been happened, this about the closure of the madrasa, none of the SOP has been followed, being stated by the government for these Madrasa Act and the Waqf Board Act. So I think right now what is going to happen, and I think somewhere, it's been stated, when you are going to suppress someone, it's going to be somewhere regressive approach going to be right. So I think India has to think it legitimately and has to take it in a proper way. When you are going to suppress someone, someday you are going to face some regression and the response from those people. Even they have seen in Kashmir, till date the Kashmir haven't accepted, even after all of the investments and everything, Kashmiris still want to be a part of Pakistan because they haven't accepted what you are doing with them, and that is all illegitimate. So I think India has to be a bit legitimate about these things. And
but I don't think the Hindutva policy or agenda permits such agencies to happen.
So eventually, someday they will realize after like when they are going to face the results, I think.
I don't know what was going to happen. It's not going in the right direction. Tayyaba, coming to you, Muslim leaders have drawn many parallels between the madrasa closures and the closures of or demolition of mazars and the mosques in the past as well. They argue that these actions advance this Hindutva narrative of demographic and cultural control. Do you agree?
Yes, absolutely. When you look up at the broader policies that the BJP government is implementing in India, from Waqf amendment to abolishing mosques and building mandirs, all these policies reflect their strategies to marginalize the Muslim community, and these Hindu nationalists or radicals. They are not just targeting the Muslims, but the other minority communities like Sikhs and Christians. They have also been targeted. And it is also important here to mention that while the Bharatiya Janata Party is concerned that these madrasas are spreading radicalism, but we need to or the world need to ask the BJP government that where these Hindu or BJP radicals come from, or where they are getting their teachings from. They are getting their teachings and they are getting their education from the BJP, party members, and where the BJP is in lead, or where there is BJP leadership in various states, where communal violence, communal rights are increasing rapidly. And the BJP government should, probe that where these radicals are coming from. And when it comes to targeting, killing Muslims, even in last year, there have been various reports that Muslims have been killed, but no Hindu was, behind bars. And there is no justice when it comes to Muslims. And I don't know that who has given them these ideas that these are the Muslims that are or these madrasas are being radicalized, because when we see the broader, political context of India, it is under BJP government since 2014. It is their election manifestos that are spreading radicalism, extremism in the Indian society. And those Hindu radicals are, they are not allowing the Muslims to perform their religious duties. They are not allowing them to get their religious education. They are not allowed to perform their religious festivals or to celebrate their religious festivals openly when it comes to, their religious practices. So it is basically the BJP government broader policy to marginalize the Muslim community. And it comes from the top leadership, that is Prime Minister Narendra Modi, And then the various states where BJP is in power, you can see that in all those states, Muslims are targeted, but there is no justice that has been provided to them.
All right, Chitrali sahab, also the Muslim leaders have also criticized the media for taking the similar stance as the BJP government. They believe that the media is playing their role in amplifying this Hindutva narrative by framing madrasas as centers of radical activities. Do you agree?
No, eventually, if I say that there is something which is going illegal or something, it is promoting extremism. So you are the government, you have the power, you have already defined a madrasa boards which are working under the
And the
policy
madrasas
of
are working for education and cohesion of society.
They are directly linked with the government institution and the Ministry of Education. They can bound them like even in, anywhere around the world. Different of the madrasas are going on. They just submit their curriculum to the government, and the government accept them. So they already have a right. If they have an issue with their curriculum, if they have an issue with something regarding the structure of the madrasa, the government can propose something.
Or they could have had
discuss.
talks with the leaders before closing these madrasas.
Definitely. But like this closure was a directly attack on the freedom of social education, freedom of religion practice. And it was a direct violation of Universal Declaration of Human Rights from the India.
All right. All right. Tayyaba, the Waqf board reforms that have been supported by certain clerics and controversial amongst others are also now being seen by the critics as aligning with the Hindutva policy to dilute Islamic education. How do the Muslim families, in your point of view, who've been affected by the closures, perceive this Uttarakhand Waqf board's push to modernize quote-unquote madrasas by including Hindu-centric teachings of the Lord Ram, for example, as an imposition of Hindutva values that undermine the Muslim religious identity?
Yes, absolutely. All these, Hindu, like, this is something which is very basic. Like, how can the religious identities, they should be imposed on the Muslims? Because when you see that they are modernizing the madrasas, but why is there a need to modernize those madrasas? Because they are teaching they're teaching the Islamic teachings to the students or to the Muslims, and by these reforms or by these modernizing processes, BJP government is just trying to inculcate the Hindutva values among the Muslim population. And it is their basically broader strategy. And we have discussed in detail that how this has been in their election manifesto. And Muslim students and families obviously will be affected by it, because as Sir has also highlighted, that it is your basic freedom to, freely practice your religion according to your wish and will, but by imposing these Hindu-centric teachings, this is against their fundamental right, and it is against the very essence of secularism and the democratic norms that India, flags in front of the world. Because if there is secularism, the Muslims should be allowed freely to practice their religion, and there should not be any imposition of Hindu-centric teachings. Like you mentioned, Lord Ram's stories in the religious values or in the religious identity of the Muslims. So it is basically their broader strategy to push Muslims to an extent that there is no free space available for them. May it be their educational institutions, may it be the political reforms that are undergoing. Everything is, targeting Muslims and other religious minorities in India. And obviously the Hindutva values, they aim to make India a place for Hindus only, where no other religious minority should have freedom to practice their religion or their way of life.
I agree with you on that. Thank you very much, Tayyaba Khurshid, Research Officer, Center for International Strategic Studies in Jammu and Kashmir. And thank you very much to Said Usama Chitrali Saab, International Relations Expert, to have joined us in the studio to discuss this very important matter, the erasure or the attempt to erase the Muslim identity in India.
Just one point I want to add, as our panelist Tayyaba added. already from 1952, all the madrasas around India were taking this the rituals of the Hindu to be taught in madrasas to understand that society, and it was going under a comparative religion already. But if you want to impose that we have to teach the way you teach, this is actually like
exactly,
I think
exactly. That goes against the social cohesion also process that all these madrasas have been following. Let's come to our last two stories very quickly. The first concerns a statement by the chairman of Council of Islamic Ideology, Dr. Naseemi, who has called for a complete boycott. On the one hand, calls for a complete boycott of Israeli products and companies. Of course, this is in the wake of what is happening in Gaza. But he has reiterated that people's lives and property needs to be protected during this boycott. He said in a statement that we strongly condemn Israel's criminal actions, and it is necessary to play a role for the best of our ability in stopping these criminal actions, but said that this does not need to result into violence. And we've seen many such violent acts that have happened across Pakistan. There is a way to react, and neither our religion nor our Islamic values teach us to react this way, because at the end of the day we are endangering the properties of our own people, and of course the lives of our own people as well. Finally, the World Health Organization, ladies and gentlemen, has struck a landmark agreement on tackling future pandemics. Years of negotiations have culminated on Wednesday, with countries agreeing to the text of a landmark accord on how to tackle future pandemics that is aimed at avoiding the mistakes that were made during the COVID-19 crisis. A lot of people say that today, Wednesday marks a milestone in their journey towards a safer world, which was also shared by the WHO chief. The nations of the world made history in Geneva today. This is what he said. Despite the fact that some countries are no longer part of the WHO, in the US in particular, the fact that a lot of the countries across the world are still adamant at joining hands to work towards the resolution of future pandemics is a step in the right direction. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments that pertain to us, you in Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.